Welcome to Sisterhood Check-in. I am your author and coach, Nadira Lewis, and it's Friday. Woo! I am excited that you guys are here again with me on another Friday, sharing this awesome, beautiful night with me as I begin to dive into this amazing topic on learning how to move in purpose. I cannot wait to delve into this conversation. But before I do so, you know how we do. We got to do our house rules. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you click like and make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can be notified every time we upload a new video. If you are watching us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, make sure you click like and share if you are blessed by the content that we bring every Friday. So I'm going to go ahead and play this quick video, and I got a special guest tonight. We're going to talk about some amazing things concerning moving and learning how to move around purpose. So go ahead and call up your girlfriends and tell them Sisterhood Check-in is on the air. I'll be right back after this.
Sometimes it's not enough to be reminded that Jesus hasn't left you or forgotten you. We need to declare it over ourselves, over others. No matter the season you may find yourself in, no matter the depths of darkness you're wading through, you can join him in declaring the truth. That God is light upon your feet, whether or not you can see the next step. That God is your strength, even though the weight of life seems to be crushing you down. And that when your job, your marriage, your relationship, your health feels like it's coming to a dead end, there is only one God that can make dead things live again. These are his promises, and they're the only thing you need to declare over your life. So as you step into this next season or this next moment, you can declare that God's not done with you. He's just getting started. You can declare that the good work that he has started in you, he will surely complete it. You can declare that the same God that parted the seas goes before you, goes behind you. You can declare these promises over your life, over your family's life, over the people passing on the street. You can declare these truths over every circumstance, over every season of your life. You can declare that every day belongs to him and every new breath belongs to him. Because we have the power of a living God living inside of us. And this is our declaration.
Wow, that was like super powerful. Every time that video plays, it's like something just stirs up on the inside of me. Welcome, everybody, to Sisterhood Check-in. I'm back here with my amazing partner, as always, my partner in crime, Thomas Taylor III. Welcome to Sisterhood.
Thank you. It's awesome to be back, my good sister. Awesome to be back.
I tell you, we are just a dynamic duo on camera when it comes to doing these lives. We've been doing lives for like ever and a day. And now we've got some amazing things that we're going to share in the second half of our broadcast, talking about what is coming up and what Thomas is getting ready to do in this next season in his life. But Thomas, today we're going to talk about, and I have a subject. It's something that I've been thinking about. You know, I read something in this book one time. I told you I've been reading, trying to read at least. I don't know if I can actually get to one book a day, but I'm trying to get at least one book every couple of days, right? And one of the things that I was reading in one of the books I was reading, I think I read it to you when it was talking about before you show up to do whatever it is that you need to do, you have to make sure that you are becoming that person before you, because you have to become that person in order to really fully walk out and manifest the thing that God called you to do. And I'm starting to really understand that even the more, because most of the time we're taught to practice, practice, practice. But what I'm finding out in my own personal walk is that you have to spend more time being who you are and learning who you are, and then allowing the person that God intended you to be in that season to manifest, and you can move effortlessly in whatever it is that he called you in that season or in that moment, because you're not trying to make it happen. You're not pushing for it to happen. You're learning how to move in purpose. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about in learning how to move in purpose is, I feel like there are several, I have like a list of different things, but I wanted us to kind of talk about it because I know you're a visionary coach. And one thing I can say about you is that you know how to be who you are. You know how to show up as Thomas Taylor III. But not only do you know how to show up, you walk effortlessly in whatever it is that God called you to, because of the number one thing that we're going to talk about right now, and that is self-awareness. So when I realize about self-awareness, I means that it means that you have a clear and accurate opinion of yourself based on the word of God. Because a lot of people, Thomas, we know, can have opinions about you, but having an opinion and seeing yourself as God does is huge, because now you're not trying to figure out who you are. Now you're learning who he is, and then as you're learning who he is, he's showing you who you are. What do you think about
Yeah. Well, hey, good evening. Good evening again. Thanks for having me on your awesome, awesome show. You
that?
know, it's sisters.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man.
No
That's just
problem.
that's great, great, great information. Learning how to move in purpose and then self-awareness. The thing
Mhm.
about self-awareness, I'll just start with that. It doesn't just start overnight, right? Like self-awareness, it takes a process to
I
get
agree.
to,
Hmm.
because we go through so many different iterations of life, growth, and maturity, right?
Hmm.
So your awareness at 16 is different at 26,
I
right?
agree.
Your awareness at 26 is different at 36.
Hmm.
And then something magical and mystical happens once you hit 50,
Mm.
right? Like your heightened awareness changes, because what happens is at that age and that stage, you realize you live more life than you have left.
Mm.
So your awareness is different of the things around you, the things that matter, the things when you were younger that you really cared about. As you mature, you realize they're just not that important, right?
Mm.
So when you deal with self-awareness, again, it's a progression, right? But what are the tools, like what are the things you're utilizing in order to be aware, right? Now, if you're using the internet and social media, then you're in trouble a little bit, because a lot of that stuff is not real. It's
Right.
just it's just not, and you'd be surprised. And sometimes what happens is we judge ourselves based upon what we do, what we see, what we scroll on our phone,
Hmm.
right? So we think that our awareness in terms of who and what we are is based upon what we see. And that's
Mm.
all a farce, because that's just a perception, right?
Mm.
So when you start to dig deeper with self-awareness, like I ask you, and I talked to you a long time and we had a lot of discussions about this. What did your creator tell you?
Hmm.
What did God tell you? Right? Because when you slow down and you start to have a dialogue with your creator to understand certain things, your awareness changes about what he told you,
Mm.
because now your awareness, it starts to tie right into your belief,
Mm.
because he could have told you something that just rocked you, and you don't believe what he told you, so you don't act like what he told you because you don't believe. That's awareness as well, right? So when you talk about like fundamental foundational principles, I just start with, somewhere in the book that I read. Sometimes I read it on a daily basis, somewhere in that Matthew somewhere, right? When I want to point a reference, right? I go somewhere in that Matthew 7, 7, and 8 for those that are listening. Just read what it says, right? And verse 7, it just says, ask. And you might receive. Now, I don't say might, but it says ask, you shall receive, right? It says, seek, and you shall find. It says, knock, and the door shall be open to you. So again, right, it's very simplistic, but how can you be aware of something and it pertains to you if you don't ask? Because when you ask, you start to get a revelation of the things that you should be aware of based upon what he told you to do.
Wow. And that's true and that's why I said in seasons, because you're right. What you may be aware of at 16, there's a different level of awarenesses that take place as you mature. As you mature in God, as you mature, spiritually, and as you mature physically, emotionally, you should be able to take all of your experiences and be able to gain some sort of wisdom to be able to apply with that awareness. Because what good is it to be aware that, okay, I was naive at 16 and I did some dumb things, and then I'm not aware of the lessons that I've learned to keep me from creating the same type of mistakes, because you can't move and purpose if you're always, for one, if you haven't grown to that point where you've taken what you've learned and saying, okay, you know what, let me look at this and let me see, okay, this is what I did at 16. Now I'm 20. That okay, here's the wisdom in that, not to do that again.
Yeah,
and
and it's
from 20 to 30. And like you said, like being 50, you're people used to all, I heard people saying to me, like, when you turn 50, girl, your whole perspective is going to change. And I am starting to see that at 50 years old. I'm like,
yeah.
Wow, like
Oh,
I heard people saying it, but I'm really starting to see it.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I had a conversation with my daughter the other day. Now she just turned 24, right?
Oh my
So and
God.
she's so interesting, man. So I said to her, I said, so how does it feel to be 24? And her response was, it was just profound, right? So my son is 26, he'll be 27 in September, right? So she goes, she said, Dad, it's cool. She said, listen to what she said. She said, my frontal lobe is starting to grow in my brain, because your frontal lobe grows at 25.
Yes.
And your frontal lobe is the decision-making part of your brain.
Look at that.
That was her answer.
Wow.
That was her answer. So she understands at 25, she should be making different decisions than she made at 15.
Wow.
Because she understands the frontal lobe is starting to grow, right, and expand for her to be able to make better decisions.
Wow.
I call her Dr. Taylor. Dr. Taylor, right? She's about to get her master's, and I told her, if you stay focused, Malaysia, you can be in your 20s and get your PhD, right? If you stay focused. I said, and they will forever have to call you Dr. Taylor. That's what I call her already, Dr. Taylor, man.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Incredible, man.
I think it's amazing. I think is, I was thinking about something today, and I wrote it down because I'm always like, studying during the day, keeping my mind, focused and stuff like that. But it was something that I heard today, and it said that God wants to give us an expected end. So when you think about an expected end, the scripture that said that God wants to give us an expected end.
End?
Yes, end, like end.
And I thought
END. Yes. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
It's a little bit, you're a little bit far away, but it's okay.
Okay. So when I thought about that God wants to give us an expected end, which means when he first created us, he already had a plan, right? About how our life should go. He already had a plan. It's our responsibility to seek him to find out exactly what that plan is so that we can move in purpose. Because you can't move in purpose. You can move in purpose even when you're at a certain level of awareness at 16. You can know. I knew at 16 that I didn't want to be in certain groups anymore. I wanted to live my life a certain way. I wanted to do things different than the people that were around me and my family, that, the example that I had. I knew that at 16. And I believe that every step that I made, even the errors, because I believe God took into account all the things that I wouldn't do right, and use it as a lesson to teach me, right? To teach me what not to do. And I think what happens is we think moving in purpose means you make all the right decisions. When sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. Moving in purpose, learning, that's the key word. Learning to move in purpose, meaning understanding, okay, this is where I went wrong. And so I'm getting my tail back together so that I can be on the path to where God has designed me to be. And I think sometimes as believers, you get discouraged because you think, if I went down the wrong path, that God's going to forsake me and that I'm not going to experience the life that God has for me. And that's not so. Now, it's not saying that you won't deal with the consequences that have come as a result, because we can always choose what we want to do, right?
Yeah.
We don't get to choose the consequences that come as a result of our decision-making process. So I think when I think about the scripture that says grow in grace, I get so excited that he's smarter than me. I get so excited that he knows that we need grace sometimes to grow in, because some of us, I don't know about you, T, but sometimes you be looking up, you're like, what in the world? What did I do? How did I get from here to here? And it's like, oh my gosh, we always say thank God for grace, but growing in grace, that too is a level of awareness, because it helps you to understand that God has taken into account your journey and everything that it was going to happen as a result of your journey. And I talked to you about this before when I was saying, I think we were in our coaching class, and I was saying how I was frustrated. I balled up into a position, and I was like, I just like threw a tantrum, and I was upset because something wasn't. I wanted my business to go a certain way, and I was just frustrated, right? And I went to go lay down on the bed, and I really felt like the Holy Spirit said, "Get up!" Like I heard him in my spirit say, "Get up!" And I jumped up out of the bed, and I'm like, and I went to the computer and everything that I needed to do in that moment, and I still can remember it just like it was yesterday, where he gave me a strategy for my business right then and there. And that was like, and I literally like, I was like shocked because of the results that I got just by obeying what he said. And what that taught me, and what it continues to teach me, is that learning how to move in purpose means learning how to hear his voice, learning how to do things in alignment with what he has planned for you. And sometimes you don't know what that is, but you learn through trial and error, right? David said, I learned obedience through the things that I suffer. So sometimes if you suffer a little bit, you tend to find yourself getting back in alignment, right? After you don't realize, okay, I got a couple scars on my head. And I'm able to get through that. But what is your response to being in a position where sometimes you have to go through things over and over again because either you, one, refuse to hear, right? Or two, is that you've gone the way you think you were supposed to go. And then yet God came in and allowed some things to happen, such as sometimes a whirlwind, to get you back in position on the road to where he wants you to be.
Awesome question. And actually, you just answered that question in your statement prior to it. I'm going to take you back in a minute. But that challenge right there is typically a belief issue, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about learning how to move in purpose, move and purpose are the most two important words. Why? Because move, you have to go, right? So now I'm gonna take you back to what you said. You said you was kind of struggling in the area and you laid down and the Holy Spirit got you up and did what? You moved. It's the first thing you did, right? So moving is, again, it says ask, you shall receive. It says seek. Well, when you understand the word seek is you gotta go, you gotta move. So you got up, you moved. And then you said in purpose. When you got up, you knew exactly what you had to do. It was no guesswork for you, right? So you, the very next thing that you did was on purpose because you knew exactly what you had to do. So the answer to that question is, when we understand, when we go to God and we understand what he's telling us and what he's asking us to do, we have to believe and then we have to move. Well, when we move, we should always be moving on purpose. I said this example to you the other day for those that are listening. When you leave your house in the morning, whether you are an entrepreneur or you work for corporate America, when you leave your house, you typically know where you're going. I don't really know anybody who leaves. Right? I don't really know anybody who leaves the house and don't know where they're going, right? So you're leaving and you're moving on purpose with intentionality, right? So why is it that when we live this thing called life, we don't have that same intentionality? For some reason, we don't take the time to understand what God has told you in order to understand the direction that we should go in. Because again, it's the same thing. So what happens is when we don't know that, we tend to stand still. We tend to be busy and not productive.
That's
because
good.
we're not so sure. Well, in order to be sure, in order to know and understand, just like when you are going to a particular destination, you have to know what he told you in order to know the direction that you're going in. Now, the unique thing about that is it's not that deep. And what I mean by that is whatever you feel the Holy Spirit has given you and told you, that's what you do, Nadira. That's the way you go. But sometimes we sit around and we wait. God, should I click my heels 3 times? Should I jump up and down and raise my hands? Please send me a sign. Send me a gift. Send me something. Send me something that will give me another level of understanding that it's you. Well, he already told you. But for some reason, we feel we need a deeper level of understanding or confirmation, right? So just think about those in the Bible, whether it be Abraham, Christ, all these different people who heard a word and they moved, right? There was some delay, like Jonah. He tried to get out of it, man, and we all know what happened to him. You know what I mean? Lot's wife didn't believe and she looked back and we know what happened to her. But for the most part, people hear the word and they move, right?
Yeah.
Like what was Jesus's first miracle? He turned water to wine. Why? Because his mother said, hey, they ran out of wine. Go ahead and help them out. And what he says, he's like, woman, what does that have to do with me? You boy, just go ahead and do what I tell you to do. And y'all go with him. Whatever he tell you to do, that's what y'all do. That was his first miracle. But again, it was on purpose because there was a word that was given, right? So for anybody that's listening on the sound of our voice, what did your Creator tell you? What did God tell you? What did the Holy Spirit tell you? Now, the question is, how much do you believe it? See, because based upon your belief, it is done unto you. So sometimes we wait and we flounder because we just don't believe.
Yeah.
So there should come a point and a time in our life where we draw the line in the sand and say, no matter what it looks like, even if I don't have an example, even if I have naysayers, even if I don't understand really where I'm going, there's one thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to move, and I'm going to move with a sense of urgency, and I'm going to move on purpose. And I guarantee you, right hand of God, I guarantee you things will change, right?
Yeah.
Because somewhere he says he goes from glory to glory to glory. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Wow. And I was sitting up here thinking, and I was trying to put in the scripture, and I had finally put it in, but the scripture I was referencing was Jeremiah.
Oh, okay.
Jeremiah 29:11.
Oh, yeah.
It says, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord." Right. And I think it's important to know, because sometimes if you don't know what God thinks about you, right,
Mm-hmm.
it can interfere you seeking him wholeheartedly the way you should, right? Because if you don't know that his thoughts of you are peace and not evil, and to give you an expected end, it won't motivate you, right, to go to him so that you can learn how to move in purpose. Because most of the time we learn purpose. This is one thing I was pondering on, I think it was last week, and I was pondering on, I said, it's funny how when you look at how outside of God, everybody seeks for their gifts, right? Want to find out what their gifts is, what their talents and skill sets are, right? And to some degree, I won't say that you won't be able to identify your gifts without knowing God. I believe that God will give you signs of things that like, okay, this is something that I'm probably gifted in. But one of the things that I realized as I was thinking about this is that learning how to use something, right, without being connected to the source of it, right, you won't have a full understanding of how it works, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time when we think about our iPhones, right, when we buy our iPhones or any of our phones, whether you have the Dretchet Android or the the iPhone, right, it comes with a manual. It comes with instructions so that you can get full use out of how to use that particular product, right? The manufacturer's goal was for you to learn how to operate the iPhone at its best, right? So that you can get full functionality out of the iPhone. And it's the same thing. It's the same way when it comes to the things that God has gave us. He said the gifts and callings of God are without repentance. So he gave it to us, but he gave it to us with the mindset, even though he won't take them back from us. If I give you something and you say, hey, how do I work this? And I give you, it's going to make me feel like, wow, they actually came to me. They didn't just take it upon themselves and just mess it up, but they came to me and let me show them how to work it. And they were able to get the full functionality out of whatever it is that I gave them, whether it's the iPhone or anything electrical, whatever, or gadget wise. But one thing I realize is that when we begin to seek God and ask him, okay, what am I supposed to do with these skill sets? What am I supposed to do with the things that you've given me? Then I believe we think God gonna come and say, oh yeah, let me show you, just do A, B, C, and D. I can't really show you how this works if I don't tell you the purpose in which I made it, right? If you don't know the purpose for the iPhone, I can give this phone to a kid all day long. They can probably, do little different things like press numbers on the phone, but they're not going to understand how to use something that they have in their hand. It's the same way with God. I feel like we sometimes try to seek for our gifts outside of him, and we do get to some level where we might be successful a little bit, even a little bit more than some people. But I found out that when you go to God and you allow him to give you the compass for your life, and you allow him to show you how to utilize that he gave you, whether it's a gift or a skill set, you're more likely to get more function out of what it is that he's giving you, but now you're able to walk out that expected end, right? Because you know the thoughts that he have towards you, and them thoughts include just how you look or how you appear. It's about your whole makeup, including your gifts and talents. If you don't know if you don't know that his thoughts about you when he created you is for you to have an expected end, then you're not gonna move in the earth with purpose. You're gonna move through the earth with depression, anxiety. You're gonna start feeling unsure about every direction that I need to go. You're not gonna learn how to move in purpose.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just want to say two things to kind of piggyback off of what you just said. So you got to understand, because he says your gifts shall make room for you, put you in front of great men, right? So if you piggyback off of Jeremiah, and if you go over there to Isaiah 55, 8 and 9, what does he say? He says, my thoughts are not your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, yeah, we think about things, but our thoughts are limited based upon either our perception or our past. Right? So sometimes, and that's why, I help people in terms of I'm a visionary coach, because what I do is I help individuals stretch their mind past their current reality.
Yes.
Why? Because he says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts. Right? Like my ways are not your ways. Why? Because we judge ourselves based upon the things that happen to us and the things that are going on around us. That's how we see ourselves. That's how we judge ourselves. And just society is so negative. What happens? We just think negative things. Right? But when you understand your purpose and when you understand the level of God, he says, hey, well, hold on. That in which you're thinking about yourself, those are not my thoughts. No, my thoughts are different for you. In fact, I sanctified you, right? Like I've really given you everything that you need.
Right.
I'm just waiting for you to believe, because I already went before you. Matter of fact, before the foundation of the earth, I ordained you. I sanctified you. I've already given you everything that you need. All I need you to do is have the faith of a mustard seed. Just think that you can believe. Just believe that you can. Just have the faith of a mustard seed. That's it. Yeah. I do the rest. Why? Because it's already done. If I can get you to believe in what I told you about you, not what they said, not what he said, not what she said, what I told you about you, if I can get you to believe that, not only will your life be different, Nadira, but those that are connected to you, their lives will be different as well.
Absolutely, man. I love that.
Oil runs down.
I love that. Wow.
Let's go.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to get more into this topic about learning how to. It's funny because we get to talking, and if I don't, sometimes I'd like draw a blank. I'm like, okay, what was my topic? Okay, there it is. Learning how to move. That's that 50-year-old brain. That's that 50-year-old brain. That's what that is.
That's all right. It's a beautiful thing.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue on today's topic, learning how to move with purpose, and then we're going to talk about Thomas's new adventure that he's got coming up.
Yes, sir.
A long time coming.
Let's go.
Make sure you call up your girlfriends and tell them Sisterhood Check-In is on the air, and we'll be right back after this.
Help me to trust him again with my heart and not be scared, looking over my shoulder when it comes to his actions because I felt betrayed by him. Help me to trust his good intentions towards me.
May not be physically with you,
They're in your church.
but I am sitting next to you.
Different face.
Different name. Same story, though, that goes like this.
I've done some terrible things in my life,
Some of them I chose to do,
and I own these choices.
but others, I just feel like I was swept up in a series of circumstances that didn't involve my will.
They just sort of happened to me.
I've become the culmination of those choices and circumstances.
So I guess I just need to say it.
I really,
Really.
really need some help.
Hi, I'm Nadira, author, life, and business coach, and founder of the Sisterhood Checkin podcast. I help women take their life experiences and turn them into life lessons. Book a call with me at bit.ly/coaching with Nadira. I look forward to helping you get to the other side of victory. Have a wonderful day.
All right, and we are back here with Sisterhood Check-In. I hope you guys got a chance. I've tried to make sure that you guys can take a really good look at some of the products that I have here. Make sure you guys, if you haven't done so, check out my TikTok shop. All of my information will be down below. Make sure you check out my TikTok shop and check out all the amazing stuff I got going on. I'm telling you, I took that. I've been taking for a couple of months now.
You a little bit low.
Oh, okay. I was like, what in the world? So I've been taking for a couple of months the Mary Ruth liquid vitamins, and they have been doing, oh man, they've been making me feel amazing. So make sure you guys check that out. I've been like floating that around with the mushroom coffee. So that's where if you guys want to know like how I get all this super energy to keep going, check out my TikTok shop. So hey, we are back here in our second half with Sisterhood Check-In, and you are doing some amazing things, talking about learning how to move in purpose. You have done just that. So why don't you go ahead and share with us, for those of an audience that know you or may not know you, tell us what you got coming up. What you got?
Yeah. Awesome, boy. Woo, my goodness. Well, again, great topic in terms of, your purpose, right? So I know, a while back that I had the ability to inspire people. I kind of really didn't know where to categorize it. I didn't know it was really a gift. But then as I matured, in Christ and things of that nature, I realized that it was a gift, right? So I've been doing Facebook Lives, and I said in my little infomercial, like 2.5 years, I went to my YouTube channel today, and it's been 3 years since I did
Wow.
my first Facebook Live, 2021, February
Wow.
2021. And it's still on there, still on my YouTube channel. Been doing
Wow.
it for 3 years, just giving free content to people. I got, I have a tribe that kind of follows me. When I don't come on, they look for me. And, about 2 years ago, I just thought about moving and taking it to the next level. So I brought some podcast equipment, brought 2 microphones, the mixer, and all those things in there. But it just sat in my garage, just collecting dust, man. To be honest with you, I was like, wow, because I know that was something I wanted to do. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I really didn't understand the purpose, right? Like I had to figure that out because I kind of didn't know kind of which way to go. I have a nonprofit organization called Growing Up Without a Father, and I grew without my father, and I'm passionate about helping individuals manage through that, right? Because for some reasons, it affects everybody different ways, right? Some people can just, okay, cool. My pops wasn't there, no big deal. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna be successful. Some people kind of flounder. Well, he should have been there. I'm not so sure. They deal with maybe low self-esteem issues, abandonment issues, and then some people just kind of tank all the way out and say, hey, man, my pops wasn't there for me. And then they make a decision and don't be there for their own kids, right? So there's a variation of different ways that people kind of display that. So I kind of went to God, and I was, going back and forth over different things. And I messed around and hit a advertisement with David Sands called My Seven Figure Podcast. I was like, is this real? Like, are people really doing this and earning 7 figures from a podcast? So I clicked on it, man, and looked at a master class with him and CJ. For those who don't know CJ is the one behind Eric Thomas, who made Eric Thomas a household name, right? That's he's amazing, right? So they kind of got together to create this class to help individuals who have the interest of starting a podcast. And then so I got involved, and then in July, on like 4th or 5th, they had a podcast summit, right? So then they asked for volunteers, and I said, okay, cool, I'll volunteer. I just wanted to be in the room, Nadira. Like, I just want to see and hear, like, is this real? It's a whole nother world. And they had speakers from, all different genres who were doing amazing things in the industry. Came home from there just really excited, and I drew a line in the sand. I said, okay, I need to stop playing it. I need to go ahead and create something. So I kind of struggled, to be honest with you, for a while because I didn't really know and understand the direction that I should go in. So all those things that I talked about tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I did myself. Like I went to God, I went to the throne, Matthew 7:7-8, and I asked, and I was driving to a meeting, and he gave it to me. He said, the podcast should be called If I Knew My Father.
Wow. That's pretty good. Like, wow. So if
Wow.
I knew my father, what was, I mean, you have a story behind that title and why you and I have had many conversations in regards to this and how, why don't you share with us how that started? Because I love how you talked about you and Carolyn and how Carolyn encouraged you to look for your dad, which started this journey. So why don't you share with us a little bit of how this journey started with that?
Yeah, I'll abbreviate it, but how, and I said this before, like when growing up, the best movies that I like were movies that started at the end, right? They start right now, real time. They show you what's happening, and then they kind of take you back in terms of how we got here, and then the movie carries on. Because sometimes you watch movies and then you wait for the punchline, man, and then the end comes, and you're just disappointed. You know what I mean? Because it didn't end the way you wanted to.
Yeah.
So again, so the reason why I'm here at this point is because I made decisions earlier in my life, right? So the reason why, I came to that ultimate understanding and conclusion in terms of understanding, my assignment was because I grew up without my father.
Mhm.
Well, for a lot of us who did, it's almost like a so what. I grew up in New York. That wasn't nice, right? You grew up in New Jersey. I spent my summers in Newark, right? Everybody who
Oh, yeah.
listen, so you understand what that really means. But met my pops one time, and then I reconnected with him 20 years later, right? So now I knew my last name. I didn't grow up as Thomas Taylor. I grew up as Thomas Searles. So, going through young adulthood, I find out that my actual last name is not Searles.
Mm.
So, it wasn't no kind of big deal because it was just me. And then I got married. Okay, then, we had a son in 97. And then I really started to think about lineage, ladies and gentlemen. Like, do I allow the lie to perpetuate? Because it just wasn't the truth. And what I mean by that was the reason why I had that last name was because my mother was married to my older sister's father. They got a divorce, and she was with my father, and she just gave me the name, Searle. But that wasn't my father's last name. That was the last name my mother had. So I went through my whole adult life, pretty much young adult life, till about 38 or so years of age, where I said, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, like if I don't change, like if I don't do one of the hardest things in my life to do, and if I don't change this, Nadir, it doesn't happen. Like the lie perpetuates. Why? Because my son grows up as Darian Searles. He has children, and they're Searles.
Wow.
It has absolutely nothing to do with them. So that
Wow.
bothered me, right? So then I started to really go I look at it from a spiritual standpoint, right? To be honest with you, that was what my anchor was. Start the research when God changed people's names. So I researched, right, Abraham, right? When God changed his name from Abram to Abraham, God changed Sarah's name, right? Jacob to Israel. And then once that happened, their life changed. So it became my foundation to understand how important our name is,
Wow.
right? Because it's significant. But sometimes we think it doesn't matter. So I set out, I want to change my name. So my wife says, well, if you want to change your name, I think you should find your father first. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Find my father? I seen that dude one time. Like I met that dude one time in my life. I'm 38 years old. I met that dude when I was 18. And you talking about find my father. I'm like, where do you get that from, man? Like, I don't know if this dude is dead. I don't know if he's alive. I have absolutely no idea.
Wow.
But I said, you know what? If that's how you feel, if that's what you think I should do, because her reasoning was she didn't want me to do this. And then I talked to my father, and then my father felt a different way. So that was her reason.
Yeah.
She wanted to make sure that he was okay with me changing my name to his.
That was really good. Like, wow.
I said, okay, cool. So Nadira, I had to go deep. Like, hey, man, I'm smart, but I'm just not that smart, man. You know what I mean? But I know where to go to get some answers, though. So, it was a good friend of mine, right? I know where to go. I promise you, I know where to go. It's a good friend of mine. We was up in the Poconos. We all used to meet together as couples. And I told a story to my partners, man. They just couldn't believe it, man, that they know me all their life, and that wasn't my last name. So my partner, Steve Williams, man, he came to me and said, Tom, man, hey, man, if you give me his social, man, I'm going to find him. I said, wow, okay. So we was driving home from Pennsylvania, man. I told Carolyn, I said, Steve is going to find my father. She said, tell me, she said, how can you say that? Why do you know that? I said, I'm telling you. I said, Steve is going to find my father. She said, okay, Thomas, like, why? How? I said, I'm going to tell you the reason why. And anybody listen can understand. if any man can help another man and or woman, but help another man not to experience the pain of their father not being in their life, they will do anything in their power to help another man not experience that pain. Lo and behold, fast forward, I found his Social Security, gave it to Steve. Steve called me on a Friday. It was Friday the 13th. Never forget it. Called my, it was 7:50. I had an 8 o'clock meeting. He called me. I was in my office. He said, yo. I said, what's up, man? He said, yo, I found your father. I was like, word? He said, yo, you sitting down? I was like, nah, I'm sitting up, but I can. He said, hey, man, he's in Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Wow.
I was like, what? I said, yep. Wow. He said, yo, you got a pen? He said, I got his number. He said, you got a sister named Barbara. You got a brother named Tyrone. Yeah. You got another sister, Nisi. Yeah, 2 sisters and a brother that I never knew I had, man. Never knew I had, man. So he gives me the number. It's 7:55 now. So I call the number. My father picks the phone up. I said, hello, may I speak to Thomas? He said, speaking. He said, who's this? I said, Thomas Searles, because at that name, my last name was Searles. And he said what I thought he would say. He said, okay. He said, well, I don't know any Thomas Searles. I said, yeah. I said, I figured you would say that. I mean, it's okay. I figured you would say that. I said, well, do you know? No, I said, do you remember a young lady by the name of Renita? It's my mom's name. Quiet. He goes, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, well, I'm her son. Next words he says, how did you get my number?
Not, hey, how are you? But how did you get my number?
How did you get my number? I said, don't worry about that. I know people. He said, long time. I said, yeah, about 20 years.
You think?
Yeah, because I went to the job when I was 18. I said, hello, I'm Thomas. He said, I'm Tom. He gave me a couple of $100 for my prom. I said, okay. My cousin and I, man, we was out, man. That was our first meeting. I said, yep, it's been a long time. I said, hey, man, I just want to tell you that I'm alive, I'm well, I'm married, I got 2 kids, I live in Georgia. Maybe one day I could come out there, see you, you could meet them. I just want to, let you know that, I am alive. He said, good to hear. He said, but how'd you get my number? My number's unlisted. I said, that's not important, right? The most important thing is the fact that I contacted you and let you know that I'm alive, man. So hung up, man. It was an incredible, hard phone call, like the phone weighed 1,000 pounds, but it was a necessary phone call. So went out there and took the family out there to Orangeburg, introduced them to my family. And there, I have a picture, and I'm gonna put it in my book. I have a picture with my son, me, my father, and my grandfather that I never knew I had. My grandfather's name is Tom Taylor. My father's name is Thomas Taylor Jr. So I was his firstborn son, Nadira.
Wow.
So my birthright name was Thomas Taylor III.
Wow. I like how you said that, my birthright. You were the firstborn. So there's a blessing that comes with the firstborn. Now it makes sense why. As when you told me the story, it didn't really click until just now. Because okay, there's a lot of people that look for their dad, but and I understand the concept of seeking him out, but now it's just like really I'm really starting to understand you're the firstborn. So it's important for you to have your last name because there's a blessing to the firstborn. Wow.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right?
Wow.
And let me go one level deeper. So I'm born January 67, and my brother was born February 67.
Wow.
And he named him Tyrone. He named him Tyrone. He named me Thomas.
Name. So you were entitled. Wow.
So now when you're talking about, living and understanding, learning how to live on purpose, when you understand certain things about your name, you start to move on purpose.
Yeah.
But what happens is sometimes it gets misconstrued at birth. That's why on my podcast, I'm going to talk about our birth certificate. See, because on your birth certificate, ladies and gentlemen, that's where the story begins. Why? Because somebody that's listening right now has a man on their birth certificate who signed their birth certificate as their father, but is not their biological father. So now as an adult, we wonder why certain things are not happening for us and our relationships are not right, because that's where the lie began.
Wow.
Right? So everybody's going around and masking the truth, creating an untruth, but they said it for so many years.
Wow.
They say like it's the truth.
Mm.
Until you find out that it's not, and then you wonder why certain things are happening or may not be happening in your life, because that's where it all began. So ultimately, that's what the podcast is about, Nadira. The podcast is about creating a platform, creating a forum where men and women can come together and we can talk about this. Why? Because it's happening right now. Every single day it's happening. The challenge is, can we just talk about it first? Can we talk about it?
Yeah.
For example, I was talking with my coworker and I was telling him about the podcast. So our other coworker was listening. So he said, Thomas, well, what is your podcast about? So I explained it all to him. He was like, oh, I grew up with my father, so he's from another country, right? From Ethiopia. He's from another country. And so he said, no, I have a good relationship with my father. I said, cool. I said, well, I'm sure you know somebody who father wasn't in life. He said, oh, yeah, my cousin. I said, okay. I said, so what does he say about how he feels about his father not being in his life? You know what he says? He said, oh no, Thomas, we can't talk about it. We don't talk about it. It's a sensitive topic, so we don't talk about it. I said, whoa, hold on. I saw my other coworker. I said, did you hear this? He's from another country. He has a cousin who's dealing with this issue, and the consensus is we can't talk about it. So what does he do with it? Do he put it in his pocket? Does he put it in his knapsack? Like, what does he do with it? Right. How does it come out? He's just supposed to oppress it. So I said, is he married? He's like, nah. I said, does he have relationship issues? He said, yeah, kinda. I said, of course. Because a young man, he doesn't have an identity. So he don't know who he is. So how can he be true to somebody else if he can't be true to himself? Because nobody can talk about it.
Do you think it's more so like that with men? Because women, we are more apt to talk about not having our fathers around. We talk about it very frequently. Do you think that's more so among men that are not wanting to talk about it?
So good question. It's not that they don't want to talk about it. So and I say this to a lot of times when I have my different seminars. I say to women, I said most women feel that men don't really talk. And I'll say, yeah, Thomas, that's right, men don't. I said that's not all the way true. And what I mean by that is men don't talk about stuff they don't care about. It's a difference. See, we'll listen to women talk about all types of things, but men, we don't talk about things that we don't have no vested interest in. That's just not what we do. That's why if you walk into a barber shop, why do you hear all the men talking? Because they're talking about who's the greatest, Kobe, Michael Jordan, LeBron, who scored the most points in the play, right? Like they talk about things that they care about, right? You never walk into a barber shop and say men don't talk. No, because they're conversing about things that they care about. So I tell women, I said, no, I said, if you ever talk to a man who grew up without a father, ladies and gentlemen, this is just as simple. All you have to do is ask them one question. They say, Mike, John, Fred, you grew up without your father. Yeah, Thomas. I would ask them one question. And the question is, how did it make you feel? I said, if you ask any man that's listening, and or a woman, how did it make you feel? I said, you couldn't shut that man up. You know why? It's choking them. It's choking them. The problem is, ain't nobody asking, Nadira.
Nobody's asking.
Ain't nobody asking. So he's masking like he's okay, like everything is fine, because ain't nobody asking. But it's choking them. And a lot of times women wonder why men don't respond in a particular way, because he has this other thing on him that he don't know how to articulate when nobody around him cares. So what happens, Nadira? It comes out in vices: alcohol, drugs, sex, crime. Those are just vices. It comes out, right? So what happens? What happens when a child is acting out in school and they call their parents? And what is the first thing that they ask you? Well, is there something going on at home?
Yeah.
Why? Because little Johnny, little Mary is not acting right. So is there something going on at home? Oh yeah, well, something happened, or his grandma passed away, or, his aunt had an accident, or something happened. So what happens is the emotion of what's going on is being acted out in their behavior. So now little Johnny is not 5 no more. Now little Johnny is 55. And he got this thing on him because his father didn't accept him. His father didn't want him. His father lived on the next block over and never came to see him. But his father had a whole nother family on that side of town, but he never came on this side to see him.
It's funny that you said that, because there's a friend of mine, used to be a client of mine, but we were friends first. And one of the things that he shared with me, he's an author now, is that he grew up with that same scenario where he lived literally around the corner from his dad and his sibling, and they were all best friends, and everybody knew their connection in their relationship but him. And it made him so severely angry with his mother that he had an extreme hate for her, right? And hate for his dad, because they were literally around the corner from each other. And he was literally in and out of his dad's house, didn't know it was his dad. His siblings were his close friends and didn't realize putting 2 and 2 together until somebody reveals it. I understand that a lot. I remember being at Christmas and being at my aunt's house, and my uncle, he's always joking and laughing and playing games. We're used to it. He's the comedian of our family. And he kept throwing out stuff. Like, that's why your father's name is this and your father's. So I'm thinking he keeps doing that periodically. He's trying to leak something. And then it got to a point where it was really starting to bother me. And one day he just came out, because my mom didn't tell me. I always had a suspense, but my mom had such an anger towards my dad that she didn't want me to know him. So it was no, this isn't your dad, the one who she was married to. That's what she wanted me to know as my dad. So he said to me, he came out and told me, and I asked my mom, and my mom, I guess she kind of chucked it off like nothing. But when I got home, it really bothered me, because I grew up thinking that the man that was in our house was my dad. And he wasn't, but he took care of me. And he told me I was going to always be his daughter. And but I was really grieved about that, because to me, I felt like that was important information to not let me know. I'm 13.
Yeah, they deprived you.
13, well, because in their
Did
mind.
Did you ever meet your biological father? Did you ever meet him?
I met him when I was 13. But the way I met him was in a way that messed with my mind, and it kind of messed me up because when I met him, he said he broke his promise. And in my book, What Happened to Me, How Did I Get Here? I talk about my first interaction with my dad and how when he showed up, right? My great grandmother was 106. She had passed away. And we were all gathering together at the house in Newark so we can get prepared for the funeral. And my papa, he was like, he had his own barbershop for years. And so we go show up, and my mother is in a rage. And my mother is in a rage because, and I'm trying to figure out like what's going on. I'm 13. I'm like, why is she in rage like that? And his family is holding my mom back because my dad just pulls up in his red sports car with his wife, because he never married my mom, with his wife. And I think she had a son, and they had a daughter together, I think. And my mom was enraged. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And then it started to dawn on me all the stuff that my uncle was saying, because my papa would say, bring the kids over. And I'm thinking, how, the kid, you start thinking, like putting two and two together, like, how is he my papa? Like my mom was always bringing us around papa. And we came that day during the funeral, and then it made sense what my uncle was saying. It made sense. I began to put things together because my mom was upset and they were holding her back. And I realized, why is my mom upset? And they was like, that's your dad. And I'm like, my dad? So in my mind, I didn't care about all the phenomenal. I didn't care about the chaos. I just wanted to meet my dad. But when I met him, it wasn't a really good thing because it was so much heat, because my mom was still angry because they were together since they were younger. So they were like, my mom was in love with him. And so to see him married to somebody else and then have, and take care of their family. And then she's stuck with me and the family he created. He's showing up in his sports car like he the ace buku, and my mother was really angry. And all I could think about was, I get a chance to meet, this is true. I want to meet my dad. Well, when I met him, he was sitting in a car and he kind of was like nonchalant. He was kind of like nonchalant, like, and I was like, hey, like, do you remember, all the stuff that a little girl would want to ask, like, do you remember my name, my birthday? And he was just kind of like in the car, just like this. Like, and so when we were going to the funeral, my brother and I were in the car, and he was just kind of like just emotionally disconnected. And then I asked him for his phone number. He said that he would pick me up for Easter. He never picked me up. And my mom went crazy. She started calling the phone number, threatening him. And that was the cutoff. I never got to see or hear him again. So my experience as a kid, and this is one thing I learned when me and my first husband had divorced, I realized that though we weren't together anymore, I was not going to sever, because I knew as a little girl how much that meant to me, and I still to this day, I don't know if he's dead or living. I never had that opportunity to have that relationship, but it did show up when we talk about moving in purpose. It showed up in relationships. So as women, you kind of look for that male father figure. The men that you date, you look for men to lead you. You look for men to
edify you,
and to care for you. So to me, T, that's been like one of my core things where, like, when I'm dating or when I'm meeting somebody, I have to know that they have my well-being. If I don't feel safe emotionally or feel like I can just, it's because of that event that happened with my dad. If I don't feel that sense of safety, we won't get very far in a relationship. And to me, safety means different things to different people. But to me, safety is you caring about the very core of who I am. That means you can carry my heart, you carry my emotions. It was affecting how I moved in purpose. It was affecting how I parent. It was affecting how I experienced different relationships. So I'm really grateful that God put people around me that were men to kind of say, hey, to speak life into me and say, hey, this is what's healthy, to make me feel safe, because that's what fathers do. Fathers instill the identity. Fathers instill the safety, you know. And so, yeah, so I'm really looking forward to your podcast because I'm
we not.
raising two girls I'm raising two girls that
Yeah.
that their father is no longer living on the earth, right?
Yeah.
So I need to be able to know how to deal with them because they do want a father. They want to experience that security.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfectly natural, it's perfectly human. So
Mhm.
I'm really looking forward to seeing, what your podcast is going to
Yeah.
bring, because there are a lot of men and women that
Yeah.
are dealing with the residue of not having their father, whether he's there physically or whether he's not there emotionally. Because there's a lot of fathers that are there, but just not there emotionally.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and this is gonna be awesome, man. And I'm gonna have you on as a guest, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because you said a couple of key things, and I know it's kind of late, so I'm not gonna get too deep, but I just want to touch on a couple of things that you said.
Mhm, mhm,
Now, you said one thing, and it's key to why a lot of relationships don't work. Because
mhm,
you said, based upon the feeling that your father gave you,
mhm,
now when you enter into relationships, you expect and you require X. Okay.
mhm,
Now, what happens is that's not fair to that young man or to that man that you met
mhm,
because you already putting unfair expectations on him based upon what your father did or what he didn't do.
mhm.
So now you come into the relationship with certain level of expectation because there's a level of insecurity that wasn't taken care of by your father. Okay.
And that's why I had you, because when I was going through that, you remember I went through that really emotional trauma, in a relationship. I had you there to
100%.
coach me and to help bring me. So now I'm at that place where I no longer put that responsibility because I've had to
Yes.
heal. I've had to heal, and I have healed over some of the things. But a couple of years ago, I was a wreck. I was a complete wreck. You had to pull me out of some
Yes. Yes.
emotional,
Ma'am.
and I
Yeah.
did. I didn't know at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't know, but I have healed and I've grown since that. But there's
Yes.
still the core needs that I have are still core needs to me because it is a need. It doesn't, that need is not from a lack of not having the need taken care of myself. It's just that when you start to enter into a male and female relationship, there are certain things you expect that man to be able to do for you, and that is to give you, to provide emotional security, to make sure that your heart is safe with them, because I don't think anybody wants to just give somebody their heart and just allow
Mhm.
them to run amok.
Nope.
You set expectations when it comes to giving your heart to somebody. You have to be able to set those expectations, and then it's up to them to decide if they want to meet those requirements or if they feel like they can't. And I no longer am at the point when I see that a person does not or cannot, I'm not putting the load on them. I just realize, okay, well, then you're probably just not the one. If you can't carry me emotionally, and when I say carry me emotionally, most people might think, well, what does that look like? Meaning that you understand, because we're going to have conversations. I'm going to tell you what my core need is, right? And now instead of, going through this, well, I told you this, I'm going to watch and I'm going to see, because people show you, right, with their actions, what their true intent is. So if I see that you care or you have the ability to care for my heart, then your actions are to demonstrate that. If I don't see
Yeah.
your actions demonstrating that you care about my core needs, right, then I'm going to look at it as, I'm not even going to get mad. I'm just going to be like, okay, this is just probably not a good fit, because it doesn't matter how much I heal or how much I grow, that core need is still there.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is, because you said a couple key things, right? And we'll get into more detail later. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to the future, right? So Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies because
Oh
it
yeah.
just demonstrates how you can go back, and if you make certain decisions, you can change your future. That's why I label it Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna go back, and guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna find out if your father is dead or alive.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna find that other brother or sister that you said he had that you don't know to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But you knew when you was 13 or so, there
Yes,
was
you
one or
could.
two other kids in the car that
Mm-hmm.
were your father's kids.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know who they are today, currently, right now,
No.
right? You don't have a clue. Now, the reason why that's important is because when we go back and when we go back to the future and we find out those things, what happens is it starts to give you the ability to heal.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you come back to the present, now your emotional cup is not empty.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is when you start a relationship, right, and your emotional cup is empty because it's drained from the
Mm-hmm.
past, the person you meet, that's a tall order for them because now they got to fill his whole cup. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have no expectations for him. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is let's get this cup half full. So all he has to worry about is filling the half of the cup, not the whole cup.
Mm-hmm.
Because the length of time that it may take to fill a whole cup,
Mm-hmm.
it may not be right. Like some things may happen because he may not be a whole cup filler. He might be a half a cup. It don't mean he's bad. He's just half a cup though, right? So if you come with the half a cup already filled, it's less of a job that he has to do. And what happens is now you can maintain the relationship longer till you can find out who he really is. But if he has to fill a whole cup, right,
Mm-hmm.
that order might be too much for him at that moment in time. And he may not have enough runway to be able to fill that whole cup. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and then we're gonna start to plug some holes, right? Because some areas you could be leaking oil and you don't know you leaking oil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's somebody out there right now who is your brother, your sister. Why? Because you have the same father.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know them though. So what happens is sometimes you don't realize that that's a piece of you that you don't know.
And I
They could
actually
be yearning for you, you could be yearning for them. Huh?
when I was 16 was a very pivotal age for me. And me and my best friend, we actually I went through that search and I did seek out at 16, but I was unsuccessful with it. So one of the things that happened to me is that in that process where I felt like God came in and he filled up the cup. So it's like because I went from 16, well, really from 13 all the way up till I became an adult and through, my first marriage and relationships, I went through like I was like emotionally a wreck, right? But it really there's some people that are never going to have that opportunity to meet their dad. Some people, because if their dad has passed on, they're never going to have that opportunity. So what I've learned is in that process where I felt like my cup was not full, I had to go to God to fill up that cup because he's the one that created my parents, my father and my mother, right? So if I don't have that privilege like you did, right? Or the resources like you did to do that, then I have to look to God as my source, right? To fill up my cup. And that's what he had to do is he had to, and not only did he do it, but he put people in the midst of me, right? To pour into me because I didn't have that. Not everybody's going to have that access to do that. So it's important, yes, if you can, and you can locate your father. And even sometimes who say that when you locate him that you're going to get what you need, right? Because if he's broken or if he's in a place, that doesn't mean he's going to get what he need, right? But that's why I think what happens is you have to get to a place where you have to allow God to fill up that void, right? Because that's really what it is a void, right? If you don't allow God to fill up those voids, because you could meet your dad and still have those voids still there. because you may not have that relationship with him. You might have met him, know where he at, but that doesn't mean he want to have a relationship with you. So I've had to learn to allow God to fill my cup, and he's placed people around me that were men that poured into me, right? And help, like you came in when I met you, you kind of, you came in and you started pouring, in areas that I didn't even know there were leaks in, right? But that's what God did for me, is put people in the midst of me, because I more than likely I haven't had that opportunity. And it's been 30 something years and I've done that search.
So we're not going to tackle this all here, because we're going to tackle this on the podcast. But I'm going to share this one thing with you. I'm going to share this one thing with you, though. and I don't disagree with nothing you say, right? We're gonna put that on a level, right? Mm-hmm. So everything that you said is on, let's say, the first floor, right, or the top floor, right? Let's say everything you said is on the penthouse, is on the top. Mm-hmm. We just gonna go down one level, right? And what I mean by that is the reason why, and this is a driver, the reason why I did the search and I didn't stop until I found him, and then ultimately my siblings, was not for me. Wasn't for me. But I had to do it, though. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I did what I did was for generations unborn. And I think that's where we miss it, because everything that we feel, everything that we talk about is for us. Mm-hmm. The reason why I'm talking to you the way I'm talking to you is because I'm not even talking about your father. I'm not talking about your father, right? I'm talking about his sibling. I'm talking about his children, your siblings, right? The reason why it's significant, because you have children who have uncles or aunts out there that they don't know.
Yeah.
That's significant. Why? Because it's a part of them. Mm-hmm. But the challenge is they can't do your work. They can't do what you have the ability to do. Mm-hmm. They're beneficiaries of it. But they don't have the ability to do it, right? You have the ability to do it. We have the ability to do it. But we stay on the top floor about us, and we don't go to these other floors. We don't go get a little bit deeper to realize what happens when we find your siblings, your brother or your sisters, right? They could be that missing link that you ask God to help you with your daughters. See, we don't know that, because we don't go, we don't seek, we stop at us, right? So the challenge is to look past us. And what happens if those siblings of yours have the ability to breathe life into your daughter's lives, and then help them in other areas that they're struggling in, and they family, they're not a stranger, they're family. Mm-hmm. But we just stop at us, though.
And and that's true, but there are some people who may never get that opportunity. And for me, I did this search, not just only for me. I didn't have any children at the time, but I did the search, and and then it's crazy because my best friend, listen to the caveat with this. So my best friend, we're talking, and I'm a part of the family group because we've known each other since we were like 14. So my best friend says, hey, her aunt puts me in the group with the same last name as my dad's, right? So I get this, I'm driving, right, T? And I get this notification from Facebook, and it says that the person has the person's face and the exact name as my dad, right? And I almost crashed because I'm freaking out, because I'm like, what? So I take the picture, clip it, and I send it to my mom. Mom, is this my dad? Like, he just passed away. Like, is this my dad? And I was like, is this a coincidence? Like, I've been searching all this time. But so my mom looks at the picture. She says, I don't really remember. It's been a long time. Sends the picture to my other family members that did know him. And they're like, yeah, that was him. Yeah. So when I asked my best friend, and it's funny because she was with me on this journey at 16 looking for, but where the discrepancy was, even though they had the same last name and family members seemed to be similar in name and everything seems to fit, the only thing that didn't fit is that she said that he did not have any children. And I said, well, that was a thing that my mom was, him and my mom didn't get along about because he never acknowledged us. So, and she was saying, well, my cousin, the same guy, did not have any children. So I was like back at hitting a wall again. But what she did say is that her aunt was saying that they are willing to do like a test with the siblings to find out. And so that's where we're at right now, trying to get the testing done so that we can see. So if, when that happens.
Just because he said he didn't have any children, don't mean he ain't had no children.
Yeah, that's what she said. Well, he wanted children, but he didn't have it. I'm like,
well, who was the kids in the car though? Who's the kids in the car?
Well, I know my mom told me that one of them, my mom and my aunt at the time, my aunt said that the son was hers, and I think the daughter was theirs. The daughter was theirs. So, so I was like 13. I'm 50 now, so that's like, you're talking about 7 years ago, but. When my best friend was saying that they said the family was willing to do a testing, but they were really sure that he didn't have any kids. And so that is where the dilemma. So I had to get to a point where, though I'm going to do the testing, I'm just waiting for them to set it up. I had to, even before this event, come to the place to where if I don't, I got to be content with with God. I've got to be content, and I've got to allow. And sometimes, in some situations, not everybody is maybe meant, because you don't know what kind of man or man that he might have been. So in some instances, it can be a devastating thing. But for me, I had to turn to God to really get that impartation, or I wouldn't have made it as an adult, because I wouldn't have so many emotional ups and downs. I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it.
Yeah. I say go through it, man, and then we come back on Sisterhood Checkin and you talk about it.
Yeah, that would be good. I'm just waiting for them to because her aunt, that they will be willing to do that, because he's no longer living. Because that day when I saw it in the group, I literally freaked out. Like literally, I was like driving, because I remember the complexion, everything's just too, and I know.
So who they gonna use to do the DNA testing for or with? Who they gonna use?
Well, I guess with the sibling. And one of the siblings passed away. So, I think they're down to like one or two siblings. So it's just getting, they're in Jersey. They're up north. I'm here. So there's a lot of things that are like going into play. So hopefully,
hey, drive it, man. Drive it to make it happen, man. So it could be behind you. You know what I mean? And then you come back and talk about it. You talk about your experience. It may help somebody else, man. I'm telling you.
That's true.
This thing is real.
That's true. Well, thank you, T. I know you're tired. I can see it in your eyes.
Oh yeah.
I have to end also, because I have tomorrow. For those of you that are watching, tomorrow is the Entrepreneur Awards here in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you are an entrepreneur and you live here in the city of Atlanta, make sure that you go. I'm going to go ahead and put this link up here. For those that want to attend, the tickets, general admission, the tickets are, I think, $15 or $25. But I think let me put up this thing. It's myempireevents.com, where you can go and actually yes, it's their second year. I've actually met the owner. Dr. Pitts, incredible man. And he's actually going to be hosting it. This is the second year where they actually honor entrepreneurs around the state, right? And I don't know if it's around the state or maybe just Atlanta, but they actually, it looks like, I mean, it's done in such a spirit of excellence. Like, so at 6 o'clock is the red carpet, so I'm excited. So For those of you that want to attend, make sure you go to myempireevents.com. Dr. Pitts is an amazing guy. You'll get to meet other entrepreneurs and network with other people that are in business. So make sure you check out the website and get your tickets so that you can go. It's going to be held here in Atlanta. The tickets are only $15, I think Dr. Pitts said. They were $15. So make sure you guys join. Did you have any final words, T, before we actually end the broadcast? Man, this was amazing. I'm a duo on these podcast streets.
Man, great call. Thank you for allowing me to be your guest.
Definitely.
Tune in. It's coming soon. My YouTube channel is Tailor Your Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my podcast is gonna drop. It's gonna be awesome. I hope you enjoyed tonight, because it's very, very, very important, ladies and gentlemen. Those of us who actually, father made a different choice, a different decision, whether he passed away or left or just kind of, didn't own up to his responsibility. Can we just talk about it? And just like myself and Adira did tonight, like we can discover certain things and then we can help each other get through the maze, right? Because it's like precept upon precept, right? I may have shared some things with you tonight that you didn't really think about, and then I'm going to support you inside of that, right? Why? Because every single day we deal with this, right? It doesn't just go away, right? How was you able to articulate all those things that you did if it wasn't on your mind, like if it wasn't at the top of your mind? It is. We just find a way to mask it. Why? Because we think nobody cares, because there's nobody asking, right? So, hey, join, subscribe to the channel. It's going to be a fun ride, ladies and gentlemen. But again, thank you for allowing me to be a guest tonight. Keep up the great work.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Help me to trust him again with my heart and not be scared, looking over my shoulder when it comes to his actions because I felt betrayed by him. Help me to trust his good intentions towards me